Hi there. Wow, it's been a long time since I've done one of these. So this is going to be me, my Wuhan pajamas, my shan shui painting behind me, and looking at the camera. So right now in Wuhan, as far as we know, there are 14 cases of the coronavirus, and I think the Omicron probably more specifically. There are a number of communities that have been isolated and in lockdown. And schools are running as usual because schools are considered kind of an essential service. So my colleagues are expected to still go to work every day. So then the parents can then go to work. My colleagues are expected to go to work so they can teach. And then the parents can work and make money. And then the economy continues while we isolate specific areas and quarantine those areas. So that's kind of what's going on right now. So I don't know, I thought I'd talk a bit about that because Wuhan is the home of the coronavirus, and in 2020, and here we are now. It is February the 23rd, and we have 14 cases. So it will be interesting to see how Wuhan responds. So far, they haven't shut down the city. In Xi'an, when there are a number of cases, they shut down the entire city. I don't remember what the numbers are. Sorry, I got to turn off my phone. But so it'll be interesting to see what Wuhan does. But me, by coincidence, I'm actually taking a bit of a leave from my work for some health reasons. But so I'm going to actually have some time to relax and kind of do what I wish. But it's interesting, like today, I was leaving my house to go to a cafe. And then I thought to myself, I'll just take the subway because it's way less expensive, like substantially less expensive. But then I was like, oh wait, if I get into a subway, I'm in a crowd, and the government sent them out a message and said, don't go into crowds and avoid groups. So I'm kind of like, okay, then I won't take the subway. So I had to pay for a taxi, which is more expensive, so cost prohibitive. So like in that case, I was kind of like, all right, if you are going to make the smarter decision in terms of protecting yourself, it's going to cost more money. Okay, that's interesting. And I think like maybe we can kind of go into that for a moment. So in my life, as a child, I was poor. My family had the basics, the needs met. We lived in Canada, so we had healthcare, education, and then my parents worked to buy a house. So we had our needs met. We were never starving. Our food was healthy. We bought secondhand clothes. We borrowed clothes from family, or was given clothes from family and friends in the neighborhood, from the church. But by definition, we were poor. And then when my parents separated, my mom almost lost her home. And if it wasn't for family and support from friends, then she would have lost the home with 6 kids, and who knows how that would have worked out. So anyway, by definition, I came from a poor family. And today, as I talk to different people about relationships and dating, and this goes back to the subway versus taxi scenario with the coronavirus, but the relationship stuff, I interviewed 17 women who were 18 actually, who were single, divorced, with children, in a relationship, married, from the ages of about 23 to 40, and I basically asked them what are the 5 to 10 things they look for in a man. And although money did not come up a lot, it came up only twice, I thought it was fascinating. So I went to a deep dive in money, and what motivated this study that I did, and I put it on Excel and organized it. But what I was motivated by the study was that my friend, he came to me and he's like, hey man, like I'm having issues with women, like I did go on dates with them, then afterwards they just kind of turn me down and give me the cold shoulder. So then I thought to myself, okay. And then he's like, do you mind if we like get a group together and we talk about kind of what women want? And then he started a WeChat group, like a WhatsApp. A WeChat group is a WhatsApp of China, kind of. A WeChat group with a bunch of women and men, and we got a group together, and we had 3 women and 3 men. They were all Chinese. I was the only foreigner. I facilitated this, and I brought the data with me from the 18 different women who responded, and we had a really rich discussions. And the one thing, though, the most important thing they wanted to talk about was about why is it that men are overly confident? So that's a question that a lot of women ask in general. But then when it was coming to money, okay, So there were a couple of women in the survey that I did, in the qualitative analysis that I did, and they said money. Like 2 of them said rich or money, but only 2 out of 18, which is impressive. So I kind of went further and I said, like, what do you mean by money? What do you mean by rich? What do you mean by wealthy? And no one answered the question. Nobody gave me a number. And I thought to myself, in the world of quantification, numbers and math are pretty, come hand in hand. So why the hell aren't people saying, like, well, he needs to have this much money? But I think the reason why they didn't know could be 2 reasons. 1, they never actually thought about it before. Or 2, they weren't comfortable with talking about it. Or both. Maybe another option too. But anyway, basically from that, I was like, okay, so they don't really want to talk about how much, but they want to expect it. They don't really know how much, but they want to expect it. Either way, they expect it, but they're not communicating it. And I'm not a future husband to these women or a boyfriend. They don't owe me anything. But it was still kind of interesting because I'm thinking to myself, I'm a single guy, and eventually I want to get married, and I'm in China. Probability is I'll marry a woman from China, and probably from Wuhan, because that's where I currently am living and have been for the last 3 years. But I'm like, okay, like, I came from a poor family, and I've worked my way into further stability. I'm still paying off a student debt, but like, what is wealth? What is rich? What is money? Like, what does that mean? And in money, again, it's simple. It's numbers, right? It's assets. It's liquid assets. It's resources. It's equity, things like that. One friend gave me an answer, and she basically said he needs to have the equivalent to $1 million Canadian dollars. And she justified that by saying, she just justified that by saying that, you need 2.5 million renminbi to buy a house, and you need another 2.5 million to raise kids, with like the cost of living and education. Because in China they have 3 mountains. The 3 mountains are education, healthcare, and housing. Now in Canada, healthcare and education are taken care of until you're 18. Healthcare is free all the way through, but then there's housing. So then again, Canadians only need to focus on housing. Chinese need to focus on healthcare, education, and housing. Public education is way more competitive. It's way harder to get into, but it costs very little, like 1,000 renminbi or 200 Canadian dollars a year. And then healthcare, well, you're legally, your company that you work for is legally expected to cover your insurance policy of 5 different categories. Yeah, and that's fine and good, but there's degrees to which this coverage can actually exist. So if you got cancer or something serious, then there's a good chance you wouldn't be covered. I had a hernia surgery last year and I wasn't covered, but that was because I was in between policies, and then they said you have a pre-existing condition, but I had to pay out of pocket 6,000 Canadian dollars for that. So anyway, the point is that money is a very interesting thing when it comes to relationships. So when I went further and deeper, beyond the woman who said 5,000, I listened to what she said, and she was like 5,000 because, 5 million renminbi or $1 million Canadian dollars. Because what happens to my parents when they get old and they can't take care of themselves? We need money. What happens when my kids grow up and they want to get into a good school? We need money. What happens if we get into a health crisis and something happens? We need money. So now, ideally, we want to be wealthy people. We want to be wealthy in love and care and compassion and respect and honor and gratitude and all these things. But then we also want to be wealthy when it comes to money because it gives us more choices. We have more options and we have more freedoms. So that's why I think, these women want money when they're talking about a relationship, a marriage. Because one woman said, money is not the basis of love when you're dating somebody, but when you are going to marry them, it's the basis of marriage. Now, I don't fully agree with that. I think love is the basis of marriage, but money is part of that basis. Money is part of that foundation because you need to have a degree of stability and security in order to have more stability and security in a relationship. There is a correlation there to an extent. But to counter that, I've known many couples growing up from Canada who just grew together. They started out as poor, very little, and they grew together. And then they slowly had kids, and they made more money. They got better jobs because they worked hard. And that growth process built this insane intimacy and companionship and that special bond that they were like, you know what, we did that together. So that's more of like the Western way, I find, whereas the Chinese way is like the barrier to entry is up here. You need to have, like, say, $1 million Canadian dollars in order for us, and this is an extreme example, but you need to have $1 million Canadian dollars in order for us to get married, and then we can talk about getting married. But what I find is interesting in Chinese culture, there seems to be less of an interest in, like, character, and less of an interest in, like, what's he like, how does he treat you, when it comes to superficial conversations. But when I did the study, let me pull up the study right now. When I did the study, the responses these women gave were very fascinating. Okay, let's pull it up. Okay, I'm not going to go through all the categories in which they said were the top, were all of them, but there were like a lot. Sorry, losing sleep these days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's like over 50 areas in which women said they want, like 50 different responses in what women look for in a man in a serious relationship. But the top ones were the following. 43. Okay, the top ones were connection, responsible, kind and generous, considerate, honest, family-oriented, personality, loyalty, looks was in there. It was not a high one. I think 2 people have said looks, maybe 1. Respectful, solves relationship issues, emotionally supportive and caring. So these are, like, again, women between the ages of 23 and 40 who are have mixed relationship statuses. So I thought to myself, you know what? I don't think, based on this sample of my friends that I know, I don't think these women are selfish when they're asking for money. I don't think that they're shallow. I don't think they're materialistic. Like my friend who told me that she needs, $1 million Canadian dollars, she explained why. And then when she explained why, I was like, you know what, that makes sense. Again, because in China, there's less welfare. There's less welfare. China will take care of the poorest, and they've been raising them out of poverty. China will take care of, they'll take care of the poorest. The middle class is the middle class. You don't need to worry about them too much. In the upper class, China will try to, like, bring them down a little bit so they don't get too ahead of themselves. We've seen examples of that with, like, Jack Ma. We've seen examples of that with Meituan and some of the best and biggest companies in the world in China. So China doesn't like if you stick your head out, because if you stick your head out, you're the first one to get it chopped off. And obviously that's a figure of speech. Okay? But yeah, even at my work, if you're successful at what you do, you're humble. A true Chinese in mainland China is humble. A true Chinese, based on culture and responsibility. So anyway, in conclusion, I had the privilege to go take a taxi, but some people don't have the privilege to take the taxi. They have to take the subway, therefore risking themselves during a time where there is a spreadability of a virus. So when a Chinese woman is like, hey, I want security, and money is important to me, and I want wealth, you gotta understand from their perspective. First of all, the demands are higher. Second of all, they're a woman, so they're going to make less money probably. Now, in my particular education situation, the Chinese teachers make about 5,000 renminbi, which is about the average of a Chinese person across China. But I remember, average does not account for the millionaires, and doesn't account for the poor. Average is just, obviously it's average. But the mode is probably about 4,000 renminbi, which is equivalent to less than 1,000, probably 800 Canadian dollars a month, that a lot of Chinese people live off of. So with that being said, if a Chinese woman is making 5,000 renminbi or 1,000 Canadian dollars a month, she can't really do a lot with that, except for what her family brings to the relationship, help to buy a house, to buy a car, etc. So yeah, I guess, like I said, in summary, I can understand why Chinese women from mainland China want stability, want security, want protection through money and through wealth. And but there's also a change where the future of China are seeing women who are more educated, more driven, more independent, more self-sufficient. They're buying their own houses. Like, I know these people, they're friends of mine in Wuhan. And it's really fascinating. So it'll be interesting to see the future of China and to see how money in relationships maybe shifts, because I'm starting to meet women who say, if they're more secure, they say, money's not really a factor to me. I just want to love the person and have a good companionship and build a family with them. So, which is kind of more of a Western concept. So, well, I shouldn't say Western, a modern concept. I have to stop being so Western-centric in the way I speak sometimes. But, okay, I'm going to let it go. But if you happen to watch this video, cool. If you liked it, like it. Just a random rant for 15 minutes and 30 seconds, okay? All right, take care, comb your hair, good talk, take a walk.